Let's take a turn away from the tourist visas and look at the H2A and H2B visas and what countries are eligible for these visa programs. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and the Department of Homeland Security, in consultation with the Department of State, have published a new list whose nationals are eligible to receive the H2A and H2B visas in 2018. What are these visas? The H2A and H2B visas allow U.S. employers to bring foreign nationals to the United States to fill temporary agricultural and non-agricultural jobs. Effective January 18, 2018, nationals of the following countries are eligible to receive H2A and H2B visas. Now, it's a long list, just here are a few: Argentina, Australia, Austria, Barbados, Belgium, Brazil, Fiji, France, Greece, Malta, Honduras, Spain, Canada, Chile, Italy, Jamaica, Japan, and the list goes on. Now let's just talk about the H2A temporary agricultural workers visa. This will allow U.S. employers or U.S. agents who meet specific regulatory requirements to bring foreign nationals to the U.S. to fill temporary agricultural jobs. A U.S. employer or a U.S. agent, as described in the regulations, would file a Form I-129 petition for a non-immigrant worker on a prospective worker's behalf. Now, who would qualify for H2A classification? To qualify for H2A non-immigrant classification, the petitioner must offer a job that is a temporary or seasonal nature, demonstrate that there are not enough U.S. workers who are able, willing, or qualified and available to do the temporary work, show that employing H2A workers will not adversely affect the wages and working conditions of similarly employed U.S. workers. How does this process work? Step 1. The petitioner must submit temporary labor certification applied to the U.S. Department of Labor. They also must submit Form I-129 to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. 3. Prospective workers outside the U.S. apply for visa and/or admission. Also, apply for H2A visa from the Department of State, seek admission to the U.S. in H2A classification. Now, let's look at the H2B visa program. This program allows U.S. employers or agents to hire foreign nationals to fill temporary non-agricultural jobs. Just like the H2A visa, you have to fill out a Form I-129 to petition for the non-immigrant worker. Now, who would qualify for H2B classification? To qualify, the petitioner must establish that there are not enough U.S. workers who are willing, able, qualified, and available to do this temporary work, similar to the H2-A visa. Employing H2B workers will not adversely affect the wages and working conditions of similar employed U.S. workers. Its need for the prospective workers' services or labor is temporary, regardless of whether the underlying job can be described as temporary. The employer's need is considered temporary if it is a one-time occurrence or has a seasonal need. It is also considered temporary if it's filling a peak load need or intermittent need. If an employer is claiming a one-time occurrence, they must show that the employment situation that is otherwise permanent but a temporary event or short duration has created the need for a temporary H2B worker. If it's for a seasonal need, then the employer must show that the service or labor for which it seeks these workers is traditionally tied to a season of the year by an event or pattern and of a recurring nature. Now, you cannot claim a seasonal need if the time period when you do not need the service or labor is unpredictable, subject to change, or considered a vacation period for your permanent employees. For employers who are claiming a peak load need for H2B temporary non-agricultural workers, you must show that you regularly employ permanent workers to perform the service or labor at the place of employment. You need to temporarily supplement your permanent staff at the place of employment due to a seasonal or short-term demand, and the temporary additions to staff will not become part of your regular operation. The H2B has a cap. There is a statutory numerical limit or cap on the total number of foreign nationals who may be issued an H2B visa or otherwise granted H2B status during a fiscal year. The H2B and H2A have similar program process. Step 1, the petitioner submits temporary labor certification application to Department of Health. Step 2, petitioner submits Form I-129 to U.S. Citizen Immigration Services. 3, prospective workers outside the United States apply for visa and or admission. After this is approved, can apply for an H2B visa and directly seek admission to the United States in H2B classification. Okay, what about the period of stay? A new valid temporary labor certification covering the requested time must accompany each extension request. The maximum period of stay in H2B classification is 3 years. What about the families of these workers? Any H2B worker's spouse and unmarried children under 21 years of age may seek admission in H4 non-immigrant classification. Family members are not eligible for employment in the United States while in H4 status. Once employed, the employers are required to report if their employees are no-show, if they leave without notice, if they're terminated, or if the job is completed early. Just like the H2B, the H2A workers, their spouse and unmarried children under 21 years of age are also able to seek H2 for non-immigrant classification. And the responsibilities for the petitioner are the same. You must report if employees are no-show, if they leave without notice, if they're terminated, or if the worker finished the labor or services for which they are hired more than 30 days earlier than the specific date on their H2A petition. Okay, thank you for joining for the quick overview of our H2A and H2B visa programs. Thank you very much for subscribing, and we'll see you at the next destination.